Hey Keith, how are you?
I am fine, Jake. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, North End Souls, new book. How did the inspiration for it sort of come about? I know you're in journalism anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, I've been a writer for 35 years, really, and started out. I started out on a free paper in Chorley that's no longer there, and I ended up editing a couple of evening papers
Yeah.
down in the West Midlands in Wolverhampton in Shropshire. So their version, really, of the Lancashire Evening Post. And so I was the editor there, and then back end of last year, I took the decision to leave because I think really the regional press is in a state whereby it's not in a very healthy position. They've struggled with the digitisation of local news and the arrival of the internet. And really, it was a chance for me to take some time and to do other things. I do a few things for Sky News. I do the odd lecture for universities. I'm a leader in residence at UCLan, where they have a fantastic journalism course there, if anybody is interested. And really, one of the things that I'd always really wanted to do was to write a book about North End, because my wife actually works for some best-selling authors, and we were talking. She said to me, well, you've got a bit of time on your hands now. Why don't you do a book? And she said that, the thing that you should do is write about what you know. And she said, what do you know about? And I said, well, Preston North End, that's simple as. And she said, we'll write about that. So we came up with the idea, because obviously I'm fully aware of the Gary Parkinson Trust and Gary's issues there. And that's really where it sparked from, was to, I thought about whenever I was an editor of a newspaper, I always wanted to get people's first person opinions down, people to write in their own words, because that way there's no interpretation, there's no missing the point. The person speaking gets to have their say, and it comes straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
And I've always preferred that than sort of maybe talking to a journalist, a conduit, that can sometimes misinterpret through no fault of their own what the subject is trying to get across. And so really it was a case of sitting down with these lads and getting their stories down about how they came to sign for North End, what it was like when they played for the club, and what they've been up to since. So, what developed from that was that people were talking about their childhoods and their journey to becoming a professional footballer. And, you'll see in the book, people like Ricardo Fuller, who was, playing in the street barefoot in Jamaica. Contrast that with somebody like Neil Mellor. Mel's, his father, was a professional footballer, so he grew up, with that professional football in his background. So there's some really interesting stories there. I really like the local lads, who've made that journey, like Joe Garner, and Dave Lucas, Lee Ashcroft, lads who are Preston lads. I know Joe's from Worley, but lads who grew up on watching North End and then transition, which is something that we'd all love to do, wouldn't we? We'd all dream to pull on that shirt, even for just one time, to get on the pitch for 5 minutes and to pull on that shirt and be there. And those lads really have lived the dream, and it's really good listening to Ashy and Lonners and Dave Lukes and people and getting that feeling from them. And I think one of the things that really comes through loud and clear from the people that we've spoken to for the book is that their feeling for North End. You speak to Graham Alexander, for example, and I think Grez has made no secret of his feelings for the club down the years. But when I was talking to Graham, it was just like, here was a guy declaring his undying love, for the club, and once or twice I got players talking, and you could tell they were quite emotional about their feelings for the club. I'm not going to mention names here. You can read it, and you'll probably be able to tell. But and since it's come out, I've had a lot of good feedback from some of the people in it, and people have come on to me and said, somebody came on to me on Facebook this morning saying that they're reading it with tears in their eyes, because it means that much to people, and I think. It's not written for anybody really other than North End fans. People who share that passion that we feel, and Alex Neil has said it himself, and I think he's absolutely right, that nobody outside Preston really cares about North End.
No.
They use this term that we go under the radar, but really, we're an unfashionable club. And, we're never on Sky TV if they can, unless they really desperately have to put us on. But, people who follow North End, this is why our away support is so good, I think, because you look at the people who go to watch North End, there's no glory hunters there. People, again, the game yesterday, all right, there was only 11,000 odd North End fans there, but there's no glory hunters there whatsoever.
No, it's people that have the club in the blood. And it's the people that go to North End that have, it's in the family. It's passed down from generation to generation. And my missus doesn't get football at all, and she never will. But her dad's a big North End fan, and you can see, from him, he grew up just round the corner from Deepdale. So me and him, we get on really well, and we go on the football together. And it's those that it's those people that are North End. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly. I mean, my lad's a season ticket holder now, and we live down in the Midlands, and he drives up on his own sometimes, to get to games. Like he turned up last week against Bristol when he'd been out on a big night the night before, and I thought, he's never going to make that. And then he rang me at half time, and he was there, sort of thing. I was on the town, he was in the pavilion. But I think you've got that authenticity almost of real football fans among them. And I know people say we could have more crowds on and all the rest of it, and let's appreciate the people that are there for what they are. They're proper fans, and I think there's a value to that. You look at Man City last week, and I was talking to a couple of Man City fans before the game, about what it must be like now for those people who've seen them at Main Road and seen them in League One and whatnot, and now suddenly they're at the Etihad every week, and people are turning up who probably don't know who the players are, and they go in, they're not feel it, sort of thing. And I think,
and then on the contrary to that, you've got people coming just because of the players that they've signed. They don't feel the club, and they don't know that history.
Yeah, but I think getting back to the book, that really comes across loud and clear from Loro in his Mark Lawrenson's done the forward, and Loro spells it out that for him, playing for North End was the be all and end all. That was, once he played for North End, he was like, well, it's fantastic. He went on to win the European Cup with Liverpool, obviously, and do all these things. But really, he says, pulling on that North End shirt is a fantastic thing. And
just going back to your point about Neil Mellor, I don't mind saying it now because I'll be announcing it this week anyway. But he's going to be guest number 3 on From the Finney Meets.
Yeah.
So I'm releasing the Chris Sedgwick episode on Friday, and Neil is going to be guest number 3. And something stood out to me when I met him at the Barnsley game just to say hello and sort of meet each other and whatnot. And we were just chatting about North End, and something stood out to me was that there was a mention of Graham Wesley, and he said, yeah, we both kind of chuckled at each other, and he just said, yeah, he wasn't right for our club. And I thought, actually, your time here must have meant a lot to you, because if you're referring to North End as our club, but for someone like him to say our club and refer to North End in that way, I think just goes to show what an impact it has on the players when they actually do come to the club.
Well, I think Neil Mellor is a great example of somebody who was, he started off at Liverpool. He obviously had his injury issues there, and and really it's in the book. It's an interesting thing with Mel's about how he came to join North End, and he had the best years of his career with us, undoubtedly. And I think he feels that sort of connection with the club that a lot of the players do, and even you talk to people like Sean Gregan. I know Griggs went off and he played for West Brom and captained West Brom in the Premier League. He had a decent career with Leeds, and then he played lots of games actually for Oldham. But it's North End really that he feels more than anything else, and I think that's the thing that runs through it. Obviously, your Dave Lucases and your Graham Alexanders and people like that. But I was talking to David Moyes, and Moyesy makes a point, and it's interesting what you say there about Mellor referring to it as we sort of thing and our club. Moisey makes the same thing of saying about we and us.
Yeah,
how he describes it. And you look at Moisey. Obviously, he played a long time with the club and managed it, and that feeling just comes through talking to these lads. That footballers often get a bad reputation in terms of they can be mercenary, they can be this, they can be that. But I think the people that we've spoken to here, really it comes through the feeling that they've got for the club. And I was, not taken aback by it, because obviously the people that I've been speaking to, you can tell I was after people who've got that feeling for it.
Yeah.
I wasn't after your Leon Clarks or anybody like that.
No.
We're after like Gally. I mean, talk to Gally about what he feels for the club, and he says, he basically, I think the title of his chapter is On a Mission, because Gally says he's on a mission now to get the club promoted into the Premier League.
Yeah.
And he talks about that at length, about what he wants to do, and how determined he is to do it, and how when he left Leicester, he said to him, he sat down with Nigel Pearson and said, look, there's only one club for me, and that's Preston North End. And the circumstances behind that, talking to Graham Alexander, it was clear that although he went on to achieve great things with Burnley and played for Scotland a lot of times after he left us, there was a lot of regret from speaking to him about the way that he left North End. But he talks about the conversation he had with Paul Simpson. We just signed Billy Jones, and it's interesting to get his take on it down. But I think there's a common theme there when a lot of the players.
I think I know the conversation you're referring to. I think Sedgy mentions it in the podcast as well. I won't say anything, obviously, but yeah, I'm fairly certain it'll be the same one.
Yeah,
was it when you're on pre-season in America?
Well, no, the notorious pre-season trip to America is, a lot of people there. Neil Mellor talks about that. Yule talks about it as well. About, they spent more time shopping than they did training that year. And I think Yule makes the point about that trip is that, this isn't in North End's DNA to be going away and doing a fancy, tour of North America and what. And Yule was saying, we know what we are. We are Preston North End. We do it. On the low down, we play a few tough friendlies, we play a few local games, we train hard, we get ready, and we're ready to go for the season. And I think when Alan Irvine came in the following year, and I think they went to Austria, but he said it was a complete turnaround in terms of the preparation for the season that year was bang on, and you could see that from the results and the way that we started.
Yeah.
But coming back to Graham Alexander and when he left the club, I think there's a familiar theme running through quite a lot of these chapters about the players, and that tinge of sadness that they've got when they leave. There's not many that are sort of dancing out the door. Most of them are saying, Ricardo Fuller is saying that if North End had have offered Ricardo, something, towards the end of his time with us, he would definitely have stayed because he wanted to go in the Premier League, but he wanted it to be with North End.
Yeah.
Gregan was the same, and talking to these players, quite a lot of them, they know that being at North End were the best days of their careers, sort of thing, and they kind of left. They felt there was a real tinge of sadness to it, and I think that shows again the strength of feeling that this group of players, and obviously when I've gone to look at who I'd like to be in the book, I'm not going to name names, but my 3 favourite North End players of all time are in there, and obviously I've gone for quite a few players who are massively popular still with the fans.
Yeah.
And what I tried to do was spread that out over the past 35 years. So you've got JT, John Thomas, younger listeners might not remember John from his days at North End, but
I don't.
The guy was an absolute legend. And, these lads, again, a common theme with everybody, I think, in this book, is that they gave their heart and soul for the team. You saw these lads, and they would absolutely do anything for the shirt, and that's all you want. You look at the team now, and we've got several lads like that do everything for the shirt. Gally being the prime example.
Yeah, that when they step on the pitch, they're gonna bare minimum work the bollocks off and give it all for the club.
And that's not always been the case. In the recent past, we look at some players, no names mentioned. I think there's a common theme running through the lads in the book that people like Joe Garner, Sean Gregan, Galley, Lee Ashcroft, anybody who saw these lads play, you know that they gave 100% for the shirt. Chris Lucchetti, and and you can tell if you've watched North End for many years like I have, you can tell which players really feel it and which ones are just just there to sort of get through. And I think we've been fortunate with the Grayson years and the Alex Neil years that we've had a lot of lads who have they've engendered that spirit in them, that the shirt, well, we're not the most fashionable club, but the shirt means something. And I think that comes through again in talking to the players about what they felt like. And when they lose a bad defeat, these aren't lads who are just shrugging it off and sort of going out around town at night. These lads who are feeling it like we feel it. If North End get beat, I'm having a disastrous night. And if North End win, then everything is good in the world. And I think you can tell from talking to these lads, especially if people like Lonners and Dave Lukes and Lee Ashcroft and Joey Garner, these lads are North End fans as well. They have felt it. There's a great picture in the book of Joe Garner, 1994. At Wembley, wearing his Garrett's Insurance shirt.
Yeah, I think I've seen it on social media.
I'll put it out on Twitter and whatnot. And Joe's mum gave me that picture, but it just goes to show that Joe is he's North End to the core, really.
Yeah, I met Joe's mum at Wembley. We were staying in the same hotel, me and my mates, as I think it's his mum and his stepdad.
Yes,
and all his family, and must have spent a good hour, 2 hours sat at the bar chatting, just after the game, and it couldn't have been nicer. Just normal, down to earth people. She just loved the fact that her son was playing for North End. Yeah.
So these lads, like I say, have got feelings for it, and even Ricardo Fuller. Ricardo, who'd been around a bit. He'd had a stop-start, and he'd been down to Crystal Palace, and he'd been at Hearts, obviously. But when he came to North End, he put everything into it when he played for North End, Ricardo, and what a fantastic player he was. Craig Brown, all those years at Scotland, and he came in, and again he talks now. He still considers himself a North Ender. Even though he went on to do other things, and obviously he had all those years at Scotland, and he still comes to watch. Joe Garner says he still comes to watch. Ricardo will still come to watch. It's like, they've still got that feeling for the club, and I think that's a good thing about North End. We know it because it's got in our blood, and we've had it in our blood for a very long time. But for players who people say, oh, it's just a job to them. I don't think it is for all of them.
No, I think that just shows how much of a unique football club we are, and I think we're just a little bit unfortunate in that we're in close proximity to the likes of Manchester United, Liverpool, Everton, obviously Blackburn back when they were in their heyday, Bolton the same when they were in their heyday. The Northwest is just packed full of relatively successful football teams.
It is, and I think people go on about our crowds. I think it's a two-way street, really. I think North End, the club, should really be looking at what it can do to attract people in a more dynamic sense. I'm not saying they don't do enough now. Well, I suppose I am, but there's got to be.
Don't worry, we've had plenty of discussions on the podcast about the club.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, but I mean, even in the not too distant past, there would be offers of a game that an unglamorous game would be £10 on a Tuesday night or something, just to get people in and just to see what it is, or even to do a 12-game pick and mix season ticket where you buy a book of 12 tickets at the start of the season.
Yeah,
and you can then pick and choose which games they are, and I still think that they've got to be a bit more
proactive
and creative about how we do things. And you go to other grounds, even in I've been to grounds away in Europe and whatnot, and you see that the things that they do outside the ground to get fans on board and stuff like that. And I think they've just started to do that. We haven't got the fan zone that they talked about at one point. That would have been.
We've not got a lot of stuff that they've talked about either.
No, the training ground again. We're desperate for that. I went to interview Dave Lucas, and we met at the Fleetwood training ground, which was absolutely first class. I pulled up and I was like, wow, look at this place.
Yeah.
And I think, if North End are in danger of being left behind by the likes of Fleetwood there, surely with the money that they've got now, even the money they've got from Callum Robinson, if we're not going to spend that on a player, okay.
What hope have we got
let's get the training ground done. Let's do something to get some sort of benefit from that in the long term. But no, I think it's interesting. I mean, the response to the book has been phenomenal, really. It's in the club shop now, but they sold out within hours yesterday. I've dropped them off and given them a new stock, but I'm not sure how long that'll last. Obviously, it's available on the website and in the bookshop.
Halewoods in Preston, yeah.
In Preston, in Friargate, yeah.
I think if you're from Preston, Halewoods.
You'll know those shops. And but they've been going, here, there, and everywhere. They've been going all over the world. And Australia,
from what I've seen on social media, it sounds like you've had a really good response to it.
Oh, it's been amazing.
So, just one final question for you then. Without giving too much away, what was your favourite chapter? Like, who is your favourite person to meet and sit down with and pick their brains about North End?
Well, that is a really tough question because, you'd meet somebody, you'd meet Yul Muwani, for example, and you'd come away thinking, wow, that's the nicest guy I've ever met in my life. He's just the nicest person you could ever meet. And then, a couple of weeks later, you'd meet Ricardo Fuller. And Ricardo, you'd think, well, he's the nicest guy I'd ever met. So, yeah, I won't embarrass them and say who they are, but my three favourite players, North End players of all time, are in the book. But it's really interesting that some of the chapters, the different tones that players take, some take quite a serious look on it. Some get really personal about their feelings and how it is. And, at the same time, that there's nearly everybody's got a funny story to tell, whether it's Craig Brown talking about Michael Keane's dog, which is a legendary tale. But Lee Ashcroft, I'll tell you, Lee Ashcroft is now managing Longbridge Town with great success. And actually, I'm sure could make a living as an after-dinner speaker because, he's got some great stories to tell, really funny anecdotes about what things were like under Les Chapman and John McGrath and his feelings towards John Beck and things and playing under Moisey and whatnot. And, but at the same time, I think, Ashy even goes into his feelings about, what it's like as his career ended prematurely when he was only 29.
Yeah.
And it's been good to sort of, for the players, I think, to maybe get some of these things down. One or two of them have said to me, it's really good to be able to get it down on record.
Yeah.
And to maybe sort of clear up a few, misconceptions about them. Ashy, for example, left North End twice. And he said both times he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
Yul Muwani, his reasons for leaving in the end were that he'd suffered his injury issues, and he goes into detail about why he could have stuck around, but he didn't want to because he explains it in the book, and it all makes sense from there. And so I think there's a common theme that people often weren't very happy to leave, and probably quite a few of them regretted leaving after long.
But almost like it was clear to see that the club meant something to them.
Absolutely, yeah. And that comes through with everybody. And I've been in journalism for like I say for 30 odd years, and I could sniff it if they are
if they're bullshitting. Yeah.
And I just didn't get that impression at all. I got the impression that they wanted to get across how grateful they were to the fans and how much the club meant to them. And and I think that comes through. And as I say, there's one or two I'm a North End anorak, but there are one or two things that came out that I thought, well, that's the first I've heard of this.
Yeah.
And again, there are one or two things that I didn't know about, and so it's been really interesting for me to sit down and do, and a real privilege to speak to these players.
Yeah.
And like I say, I can't thank everybody enough. Neil Mellor, as you say, you've got coming on in a couple of weeks. Sorry, I've died.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it'll be going out this week anyway. So an early exclusive for anyone listening.
but they are they are a really friendly bunch, and a fantastic, credit to the club really that we had these lads playing for us. And again, I think that spirit of the North End soul runs through them as much as anything else, and explains why North End is such a unique club, as you said before, about the connection that the fans have got with the players, because there are no big time Charlies. There is nobody who is trying to set themselves up for this, that, or the other. But we've just had a lot of players, and I think you look at the team that we've got now. Selfless players. Alan Brown, what a fantastic player. Yeah. You never hear a peep out of him. You never hear a peep out of these lads. Some players would be sort of banging on the manager's door, or their agent would saying to the agent, "Stir us up, get us a move." We haven't got that, and the Graysons of this world and the Alex Neils of this world would just engender that spirit. And we come up there and all right, like I say, the crowds aren't fantastic, but I think the spirit that you get from the 12,000 fans that do go makes up for it. I'd rather have 12,000 fans who really do feel for the club than maybe 20,000 that are just there taking pictures on their phones.
No, absolutely. Well, I've started reading my copy and I can't put it down at the minute. And we've got a copy that you've very kindly donated for us, which we're going to run a giveaway on social media. I haven't finalised the details of it yet, but I'll probably put something out this week. So if you've not yet got your hands on a copy, then keep an eye out on social media for that, because it'll be coming soon. But yeah, no, brilliant, Keith. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
And I think thanks on behalf of North End fans as well for putting the book together, because from what I've read so far, it is a real unique insight.
Thanks very much. No, it's the feedback so far has been brilliant, and that means more to me than anything else. Is to get that feedback from people, and one of my mates is I won't embarrass him by naming him, but he's a massive North End fan, and he's also the kind of lad that if he thought it was rubbish, he wouldn't hesitate to tell me. He would like just tell me.
That's what mates are for, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But he sent me a text saying it was brilliant, and I thought, well, if he thinks that, then we're in the right place.
But yeah, no, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. And seriously, I listen to the podcast. It's absolutely brilliant. And the more of those things that we can get out there, the more we will pick up sort of young people around Preston.
Yeah.
And the more we will build the crowds. And but they'll be like people who understand it. So yeah, brilliant. Keep up with the work.
People like you and I who have it in their blood, they'll come from somewhere eventually.
Yeah.
Definitely will. Right. Yeah. Brilliant. Cheers, Keith. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Where can people get the book online if they're not near the club shop?
I think the club shop's going to sell out again. Monday, Tuesday next week. The rate they've been going. So the best place really is www.northendsouls.com. You can find me on Twitter at kharrison68 or at North End Souls. And there's be links from there, but I'm on Facebook as well. But www.northendsouls.com. It'll be $9.99 for another few weeks as a launch price, and then it's going to have to go up to $12.99, unfortunately.
Get in there quick.
Get in there quick, yeah. And if anybody, I've been surprised by how many people want me to sign it and things. But if anybody wants it for a birthday present or they want me to write something in, just drop me a line and sort that out. No problem.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you very much, Keith.
Cheers, Jake. Good luck with it all, mate.
Thank you very much.
See you later.